Hey, welcome. Let's stitch this Plumeria pattern up. If you happen to get the kit, your fabric's going to look a little different than mine. You're going to have some guidelines printed on here that I do not have on mine. So, oh, and as a reminder, these guidelines are permanent, so be sure to cover them with your stitches. You're also going to have a floss card with all the colors you need. The floss on the floss card is the 6-stranded thread, so for a lot of what we're doing, you're going to need to separate out your strands of thread. So here you can see I only have 2 strands on my needle, and I'm actually just doing these little knots rather than any complicated anchoring procedures, but it's up to you how you want to handle that. And actually, sometimes with thread pinning, you really don't need to anchor because you're going to be splitting your stitches so much that they're not going anywhere. So yes, let us begin. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Plumeria. You don't have to. I just kind of want to dig right into that and, well, I hate to say get it over with, but get it over with. So I'm going to start with these little edges that are folded over, and I am going to fill those with split stitch. I like to start in the center and kind of go out. As far as the stitch direction, I just kind of follow the guideline, follow the edge, I guess. And you can probably see I'm not really doing split stitch. I'm doing a back split stitch, and it's not filled in any kind of organized manner. We're just filling. If you would like, you could actually also do, or instead, you could do a satin stitch here. Just try to pierce this. Come here. There we go. So if you did a satin stitch instead, what I would do for that would be kind of angled like this. Boop, 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 like that. You get a little bit more of a, let's see, what is the word? The words are hard today. I think it would probably make a more dramatic edge. I think it would be smoother. I think that was the word I was looking for. Very complicated word. So up to you if you want to do that, or just do what I'm doing here with the split stitch. And when you do the petals, it's up to you if you want to do one petal at a time or one part of the petal at a time. So you could do all of the edges first and then move to the center color and complete that for all of the petals and move around that way. It's really up to you. I kind of do a mix. You know, thread painting can be monotonous, which some people love and some people do not love. And so it can help to kind of change gears and switch colors or switch petals or whatever works for you. So one thing I will remind you to do before we get too far here, make sure that your fabric is so tight, so tight in your hoop. Mine is probably not tight enough. I don't know if you can see it. I'm kind of moving. I did wrap my inner hoop. You can kind of see the weird bumps over here from that. Either I didn't use enough fabric to wrap, or I didn't tighten my screw enough or pull the fabric tight enough when I was done. Let's see if there's not really any give left in there, so I probably tightened it before, I tightened the screw before I tightened the fabric as tight as I should have. So with that in mind, I'm going to be sure that I do not pull too tight on these stitches. It's actually pretty challenging to do a large thread painted piece and not have any puckering. Just with that many stitches in one place, it's hard. So be mindful, tighten your fabric frequently if needed, you know. Hopefully you have a good hoop. If you ever order hoops from me and you want some fabric scraps to bind your hoop with, let me know. I have scraps here I can include with your order. And it's pretty easy to do, to just wrap a strip of fabric, and that just creates like a nice cushion between the wooden hoops that you can kind of smush them together easier with. It's like these are bones. Would it be? I can't remember medical stuff here. I'm thinking of, you know, like, okay, forget it. You know, stuff between joints in our bodies. Okay, let's move on, Jessica. Alrighty, where are we? So I'm going to try to kind of recreate some of these guidelines on mine so you can see the guidelines I've included on here. So the faint yellow, that's just the stitch direction. And then these like kind of circular guidelines, I don't actually want to draw on this one. That's our color changes. So I'm just going to come in and sketch those in. And these are just guidelines. They really are just suggestions. I mean, if you do the entire petal with like the darkest color, well, you're going to run out of thread, because that's obviously not what I did. But there's definitely wiggle room to add variety to how much of each color you have. Okay, so when since I'm just demoing this, I'm not really worrying about it, but I really would actually recommend doing all of these edges before filling in the centers, because it's nice to have this edge already complete. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it, though. Okay, so when I think of long and short stitch, you know, you always see the little diagram with like the perfect shape. And this obviously is a weird shape. So I'm just starting by, this is my first center shape, and that center, or excuse me, stitch, that center stitch just kind of helps me know what direction I'm going. Obviously we have guidelines here, but I find, I don't know, it just helps me to kind of break it up and kind of do, let's see, how would I explain that? I don't know. I just kind of half everything and then keep halving it and halving it. So I'm halving in between these stitches and then halving in between these stitches. And then just at this point, since this shape is so teeny tiny, let's see. This will actually split that stitch. And I want to make sure I get over in the little corners here. And I want to get right up to that edge. Right? We don't want any gap here between these two. You can see I have quite the variety in stitch length. If you make your stitches, when you do long and short stitch, if you make them very uniform, that's fine. It's going to look a little bit more blocky, a little less realistic, but sometimes it's the style choice. So it's up to you if you want very distinct transitions or if you want them a little bit more natural, a little bit more, I don't know, I think it looks a little smoother this way. So what I like to do is kind of poke up from the bottom and see where my holes are, because I'm usually doing it this method where I'm kind of, you know, working more coarse and going more fine as far as filling in. You don't want to miss any, right? You don't want any gaps between your stitches. And sure, you notice that I went way over that guideline, and that was by design, because when we come in with our next color, and we have to split these stitches, so they are going to get covered, the tips of them, right? And I definitely did layers, I would call it, here. Let's see, how am I doing as far as how far that color goes out? I think that's okay. Get one more stitch in here. I'm never afraid when I'm done to come back in and add more stitches of a color. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, is it gonna, you know, if to create like a perfect long and short stitch, you should have just like one perfect layer of stitches, right? So that there's no bumps from where maybe a lot of stitches were piled up, you know? I don't know, maybe someday I'll have enough practice to be able to accomplish such a thing. But for now, nope. So again, I've moved on to the next color, and I'm just kind of laying out my guidelines. If that's weird, if you think you'd be better just filling totally in from one side to the other, then do it that way. So it's nice, the first row, we only have to think about future rows as far as blending. But now I'm on this second row, I have to be mindful of blending into the previous row and also creating variety for the next row. I actually split that. I sure tried. Oh, and then I should mention this. Yes, we are using a single strand of thread. If you look very closely at your single strand of thread, you may notice it is made of two really skinny strands that are twisted together. These you cannot separate well. I don't think it's worth trying. But you can split them with a needle if you have a very teeny needle. You can actually split. And that's what I'm trying to do. Am I actually doing it? Honestly, I cannot see that well. I don't know. That's our goal. If it doesn't happen every time, is that okay? Sure. When you split in between stitches, what happens is that you can actually kind of force those two stitches apart a little bit, which is why it's preferred to actually split a stitch in the previous row. But again, it's like these rows are so irregular, so we just do the best we can. If we split something in the previous row and it creates like a gap, like if we can like see the fabric behind it, we'll come back and we fill it in. Okay. I'm inspecting. okay. It feels okay. This looks like a gap. I don't know what I did here. It seems like I forgot my stitch direction for a minute. Okay, I think we'll move on to the next row. See another gap here. I actually feel like this transition's pretty blocky. But again, like I said, I do like to go back and kind of smooth those out. But, you know, we'll see how it looks when we're done. I think it's a fact that all thread painting projects go through an awkward phase where you will be convinced you are doing it wrong, that it is horrible, that it's the ugliest thing you've ever created. Is this the right color? Yes. It's very similar to white. Do not be alarmed. I keep making the stitches over there at a weird angle. So each petal has each flower has 5 petals, 2 flowers. So you have to do this 10 times. I'm so sorry. I actually ended up shrinking the design because it's a lot of work and I wanted to make sure it wasn't too much of a project, you know. There's a balance. Starting projects is fun, but if they start taking too long, it's like we need that gratification of completion, you know? So we don't just jump on to the next shiny project. So if you notice the guidelines on your printed fabric for the color changes, if you would like, you could actually fill those sections using satin stitch instead. If you watch this and you're like, nope, not for me, or maybe you do one of the flowers and you were like, yeah, that's it, I'm good. Try with satin stitch. What kind of angle is this? Sorry. I think a consistent stitch direction would be easy to maintain. Surprisingly not. just trying to make sure I covered that guideline okay. Can't really tell if it's just a shadow from my stitches or if it's the gray. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to our final color here. So when you get to the top, make sure you are covering your top guideline here. If you like, some people do like to do a split stitch outline. Sorry, I have a little knot on the back here. Oh, please. Nope. These little stinkers, sometimes you can just pull them out, and then sometimes they refuse. Okay, so some people like to do a split stitch outline that is then covered. So that would just go along the edge here, and then you do these final stitches to cover that split stitch outline, and that just helps to define the shape. It can help sometimes make it so that edge is more clean, more neat, more defined. And in theory, you could do that with any color because it will be completely covered. But it probably makes sense to do it with white if you do want to do it. So I'm just making sure I go over that guideline. It's interesting, you know, doing so many petals. I think every single one of my petals is different. That's okay. But as a whole, when you look at the flowers, they still look coherent, you know. And that's the wonderful thing also about stitching things from nature is there is variety in nature, right? So at this point, the edge of the petal and the petal itself kind of merge. You don't really have to do much to make it happen. You just kind of fill in the space. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, the edge is now the petal. They are now one. So if you're currently stitching, I will just remind you to relax. And what I mean by that is relax your stitches. Match the tension of your stitch to the tension of your fabric. Do not pull tighter than that. And relax anything else you're clenching or holding on to. Remember, we're supposed to be enjoying ourselves. Crafts are fun, right? This is relaxing. If it is not relaxing, try something else. If you're hating the long and short stitch, again, try satin stitch instead, or fill those segments with a different filling stitch. Or perhaps it's the single strand is driving you up the walls. Use 2 strands. Maybe you're fighting with your needles, the eyes are too small. Use a bigger needle. Do what you need to do. Maybe you're where I'm at and your edge isn't what you want it to look like. You can keep filling with it. I think that's part of the reason why I don't do the split stitch always. Well, let's be honest here. The initial reasoning is that I am lazy. Oh yeah, split stitch, oh whatever. You know, to do that outline. But also I find that when I'm doing my edge, I do a lot of stitches, you know, to make that edge right. And it ends up getting kind of padded without me doing that padding. So, and because I am filming, I am finding myself spending a little extra time here. Okay. What do we think? I think it's okay. Just gonna add a stitch here. What am I stuck on? Oh, that's weird. Somebody went through my fabric on the side. That was strange. Oops. Of course, all those different colors I used, and I said, oh, I'll probably come back and add more of this color and that color. I pulled them off the needles, so I don't have to re-thread them. I'm just adding a couple stitches back in here to smooth in the other direction. Wow, those are standing out more than I wanted them to. Again, that's what happens when you go on top of what you've already done. Okay, where am I? And let's go here. Just blending back. Now that I can see the whole thing filled, I feel like it's easier for me to kind of add a couple of extra stitches. And then between these two, I feel like we need some too, but I don't have those quite ready to go. Okay, I grabbed some. I feel like I want a darker stitch right here. Oh, there's something very hard there. Must be a knot back there. At one point, you just kind of have to move on, because it looks fine, but I could sit here and go back and forth with the colors all day. And probably don't need to do that. See, that's kind of scary. Let's see. This looks okay. Okay, I'm done. Put it away, Jessica. You're fine. It's okay to move on. All right, so that is what we're doing with the flowers. Okay, take a break if you need one. I'm gonna move on. Let's change gears, huh? We'll do the roses here. So the centers, again, your guidelines actually have the center where you're supposed to do the French knots. You have a little circle like that on yours, so you know where to do your French knots. And it's up to you. Let's see, since we are just doing a center here, so what I would recommend is like a center knot, right? So to do a French knot, if you're new at these, you're going to hold your thread off to the left, and you have your needle on your right, and we are going to do, I would just do one wrap. The more wraps you do, the bigger your knot, but the harder the knot is to create. So just start with a single wrap. All right, and put your needle tip down very, very close to where you came out. And then you tug to the left so that your wrap rests on the surface of the fabric. Then you pull. You'll hear that nice pop. That means you got it. That's it. So from here, I would then do kind of a ring around. So I have some kind of goodbye thread. I don't know what you're for. You don't need to hang out here. Okay. Just talking at the thread, no big deal. Oh. Hello. Clearly I have more to trim back there. See if I can get it without looking and without cutting into my fabric. So if you want to do more than a wrap, that is fine, up to you. Just doing singles. You're going to do the same thing for these little triplet French knots. To get centered on a single dot, what I do is I come up like slightly to the right of it, do my wrap, and then bring the needle down slightly to the left so that the knot ends up straddling that guideline. I think for the smaller roses, just like a single, let's see, like I'm considering like the center was the start, and then I did like an outline of that, so just one outline. This probably doesn't need a full two. I'm just adding a little bit more. Okay, let's say that's good. And then we're going to grab the brighter, pinky purple. Here, you. Get out of here. Okay, so with this color, we are going to do the spokes here of our woven wheel. kind of a nice change of pace after doing thread painting, right? All right, so you're going to come up near the base of a spoke, and then you're going to start weaving. So I'm going to go over this one and under this one, over the next one, under the one after that, around and around I go. And what I do is I push my flower center up, which helps me get under those spokes without stabbing my fabric. Another tip would be to go backwards with your needle like this. We will not be stabbing your fabric with the eye of the needle, right? Don't get far trying that. So whatever works for you. Keep it kind of loose. And it's going to cover some of those French knots. That's the idea. They're supposed to look like they're peeking out. And then don't forget, they're supposed to be two-toned. I was going to forget, so I'm just going to come down here. And grab my next color. And you don't have to worry about coming up exactly where you went down. It really doesn't matter. No one's going to see. It gets trickier further you get out from the center because you can't really see your spokes anymore. And you want to be sure you're not stabbing. It's really safer to go this way because you don't want to stab your threads. What you've already created with your floss, right? Okay, when I get near the end, I start cheating and I just do stitches around the outside. So I'll come in, let's see, I'm going to come over here and do a stitch on this side. It is to kind of round out the rows and cover any guidelines or any of the spokes that might still be kind of sticking out. Or if I have some thread that looks a little wild, like this one looks like it's not that wild, but if it looked wild, sometimes I'll even like pierce through something that looks like maybe a little, I don't know, unstable to kind of give it a little more stability, like so. Ta-da! All right, so we'll do these little cute little leaves over here. So basically layered straight stitches to make these really puffy leaves to kind of match our puffy rose. Where did you come from? Bye-bye. So I'm coming up a little bit beyond. Oh my. We're on a roll. We're on a roll. That's just my tail popping out. Okay. So you can come in here and like poof this up a little too, if you want it even poofier. These ones are a little thicker, so it's something like, oops, two stitches next to each other. And then one on top. So what is that stitch? I don't know. Just some straight stitches? Is it a padded satin stitch? I don't know. Just make some puffy leaves. for any puckering of my fabric. And this last one, let's see, I feel like we need like a, I don't know, do a center stitch. And some side stitches. Like when in doubt, just layer more stitches. Yay. Sad we haven't had any cat visitors for this video. Everyone's taking a nap. I think, I'm trying to remember, for the last video tutorial we had the bird feeders out. I feel like we did, maybe not yet, I don't know. We've been feeding the birds outside my studio window, which is just, I love it. It took them a little time to find the feeder, but now we have a lot of action every day. We've got some interesting characters. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure that, see, that's kind of showing through. I don't really want to see that. Okay, I see that works. And then let's see, I'm gonna grab this color for the stem, and I just did straight stitches in here between the segments to combine them. Easy peasy. So while we have this, we'll go ahead and do this. The stem right here. It's going to be back stitch, which I always accidentally start with a straight or a forward stitch before getting my act together. It's just hard to not start at the end of the line, you know? So yeah, we got a lot of house finches out here. We've seen a Gila woodpecker, which was cool. It tried to make a nest in one of our queen palms. Unsuccessfully. I wish we had a big cactus with one of those woodpeckers in it. That'd be really cool. We have so many doves that come and they bully each other. It's very funny. So the feeder itself, like the doves don't fit in, so the finches get up in the feeder and they get first pick, and then they kick out all the stuff that they don't like, which goes on the ground, and then the doves all fight over that. And it's just like when there's a bunch of birds here, it's like a circus. There's so much going on between the kicking of the birdseed out to the territorial to the mating. It's just, that's wild. Another one. There we go. Came out that time, like, yes. You may see on your printed instructions that the colors are kind of exaggerated for the diagrams. Like, this color looks like a blue, and I do that so it looks distinct. Like, it's like I try to exaggerate the colors from each other in the diagrams, if that makes sense. So you can actually tell them apart. And then I also put a link in the instructions for the website where you can see some more photos. My printer only does so. Oh, sorry. I should tell you what I'm doing. So now I'm whipping the stitch. So I came out at the base and I'm just going to whip under every single stitch. And what this is going to do is just smooth out this line for us. It might be fun to whip with another color if you want, to create kind of a striped line. Okay, so yes, my printer, it does the best it can, and sometimes its best is just not good enough. That's not nice to the poor printer. It I don't know, it's weird. Like some colors in the same photo will print out exactly how they look, and other colors are totally off, and I spent all this time tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and trying to get it to be as accurate as possible. And it's kind of like thread painting. Like eventually I just have to say that's just going to be good enough. All right, so I'm just going to go back down at the end. That's that. All right, we're in pretty good shape here. So I think we just need to do a leaf. So for the smaller leaves, I did the stripes on this side, and I'm going to have a different number of stripes than you. Oh, yours are so much smaller than mine. I think that's okay. Maybe it will do. Oh, I feel like I'm just all screwed up now. I'll just start stitching. So, let's see. We've got the two greens we're using. And the stitch direction. And there's not many options, really, when you're doing a stripe like this. Just concentrate on hiding your guidelines. Although, on this edge, we're going to do a split stitch outline. Of course, it's optional. But make sure you keep this center line pretty distinct. That'll look nice. Where's... Oh, here it is. I got all my colors ready ahead of time, and I thought I didn't have what I needed, but I do. Etc. I probably don't need to show all this, right? I'm also afraid that I'm going to be very off from the diagram, so I'm making up the width of my stitches as I go, or my stripes, excuse me. But we're just going back and forth. For some of these stripes, you're going to have to do a little bit of compensation because of the angle here. So, for example, maybe I put in a half stitch here, and then the next one actually comes up in the same hole as here, and then goes down next to here. And so you're getting this like tapering, right? So it's not like a parallel situation, right? We have some pizza slices starting to happen. Okay, and then for here, we're doing long and short stitch again. This is a very long stitch. And your fabric has the guidelines, so you'll actually know what you're doing. Probably more so than I know. But we're going from the darker color to the lighter color, and then what I actually did is when I was done, then I went in and added that super dark blue-green at the base, kind of on top of the other color. Probably kind of silly to do it that way. Let's see. I have some here. Here we go. So we're just putting just a tiny bit of this at the base, because why not? Give it one more color. I'm starting to have a big spaghetti situation. Oh my. So with this, ow, everything's fine. Totally fine. That was painful. While we have this single strand of this dark teal, I also used this to add straight stitches to the stripes on the larger leaf. I'm not going to actually stitch the larger leaf for you, but I can point out on the sample hoop what I did. No idea what I've created in the back. I still don't know what's going on back there, but I'm back. Where am I? Oh, I thought I had my act together. There we go. Oops. I just pulled that whole strand out. Okay. So when I usually stitch, I don't do all this parking of needles and yeah. There's a reason why. It turns into a big old mess for me in the back. Okay, well, what else can I say about this? I'm just going to continue filling this in. It's, you know, just like what we did with the petal, but we're only using 3 colors, and we're at a little bit of a weirder angle and a different shape, but everything else still applies. I'm just bothered by whatever I created over here. This guy is just weird because I didn't pull it, so it's sticking out. Anyways, I once again should move on with my life. Okay, what was I going to show you guys? Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. So, make sure I have the camera here. So for the large leaves, it's the same as I was doing with the small ones. You can see I added some straight stitches of that darker color. They don't extend all the way. Like these ones stop like around here. There's a diagram in the instructions too. You can see I concentrated them more here, and then lightened here, and then by here, I don't think there's any. Nope. And then if you would like, you can just do like this split stitch. I did like 2 rows of split stitch just for decorative purposes. If you want to do that, you can do that on the outside. And that's pretty much it. I think we've gone over everything else. But have fun. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I'm always happy to help. All right, that's it.